I started teaching in 1973. Now, in 1973, things were different. For example, I was really excited. Well, if you got two colors of chalk for the chalkboard, right? Everybody got white, and if you were really lucky, you got yellow. Okay, so you had two colors of chalk, and it was a chalkboard. You erased it, dust got everywhere, and that was how I started. Then the overhead projector came. Now, the overhead projector was like magic, because you could write stuff and then take it off and put it back on. And you could use colored pens. And if you really had money, you could get permanent colored pens that didn't erase ever, so you could use it the next year. See? You guys don't look very excited. That was high-end stuff in 1970s, okay? What's it say next? You have to help, come on. Oh, words that sound like that. Now, some of you remember this. Usually to start the school year, we talk about scientific method, and one of the scientific methods is an experiment done by Francesco Redi with dead fish and flies. And when the flies, one of the things that if the fly lands on the fish, it lays eggs, and what hatches are maggots. Okay? Now, maggots is one of those, it's one of those words that sounds like it looks. I mean, seriously, what else would you call those? What are those? Maggots. Oh, wait, okay. And it's like blubber. That's another one. I mean, blubber. That's the word. What else is it? It's blubber. Okay. My favorite, though, is pus. I mean, you squeeze what came out? Pus. Oh, yeah. I mean, it can't be anything else. See, so words that sound like they look. And then, you know how sometimes when you go home and your parents say, "What'd you learn in school today?" You know, isn't that irritating? Okay. So here's a way to buy some time. When you're what'd you learn in school today? Clear your throat and pronounce endoplasmic reticulum. Okay. Now they will go, "Oh, okay." You know, and then that's good for 3 or 4 days. They don't have to know that it really doesn't mean very much, but it sounds impressive. That's all that is, right? What's next? Oh, brothers and sisters, I know you're all here, and you all know the importance of faith. And you got to believe. And you got to believe the rule. Because if you break the rule, there are problems in your life. And so, brothers and sisters, I want you to come along with me now. And you know the rule. Say it like you mean it. I'll say it first and you follow along. 1 chromosome from each homologous pair goes to each sex cell. Now say it like you mean it. That was average. I can feel the seeds of lack of faith and doubt creeping in. Now, we can't have that because you got to believe. So, brothers and sisters, this time from the heart, dispel the curse of disbelief. Say it like you mean it. I don't understand it. It doesn't matter. It's not the understanding, it's the belief. You got to believe. Let's hear it now. 1 chromosome. 1 chromosome. Keep going. Hallelujah! It's a room full of believers. Ah, yes. Now, you all know that boys and girls are different, but they aren't always different. Boys and girls all start, whether you have ovaries or testes, they all start about here. And then they migrate south during development. Okay? If you're a girl, your ovaries stop about here. If you're a guy, they continue on outside the body, this general area. So, now this means you can look at this one of 2 ways, right? Either girls are guys that didn't make it, or guys are girls that went too far. I mean, probably depends on what you are as to which of those you believe. What's next? Come on, you got to keep this. You really. Here we go. Now, yeah, you ought to give it to him. All right, now, ladies, should you get pregnant at some time in your life, it is extremely important that you support your breast tissue. Right? Because if you don't, you get what I call the National Geographic look. No. The National Geographic look, quite simply, is where you take your breast measurement and your waist measurement at the same place. So just, always remember, when you're pregnant, you want to use proper breast support. The immune response. Now, I know that many of you are social beings, and you get invited to lots of parties, but I'm sure that there are some of you that getting invited to a party is like a big deal. Very good. So let's pretend for a moment. Let's pretend you actually got invited to a party, and you showed up, and you're standing around because it's like new territory, and you realize that there's food, and so you go over and you get one of the little plates, and you put the little food on it, and then you get some of the punch, and now you realize that you're standing with a plate full of food and a cup of punch, and you don't know how to eat. So you think about just kind of grazing off your plate, and figure, you look around, just then somebody comes up and they start talking to you. And then they sneeze. Now, when they sneeze, virus particles come from their nose at you at about 100 miles an hour. Now, let's pretend just for a moment that 100 viruses, only 100 viruses, hit your nose. Now, when they hit your nose, because they're protein on the outside, your cells automatically think food. And so they start taking them inside. Fortunately for you, you have white blood cells that roam around your body looking for things that don't belong. And let's say that your white blood cells are really, really good at what they do. And so let's say that your white blood cells kill and eat 90% of those foreign viruses. Now, white blood cells are engulfers, right? So when they see a virus, it's and they eat it. Right? So you've got white blood cells, they've eaten 90 out of the 100 virus particles. But those 10 virus particles that they missed, they've gotten into 10 of your nose cells. And in about 45 minutes, each of those nose cells explodes. And about 1,000 virus particles are released into your body. Now, the white blood cells, they've been waiting. And they call their buddies. But, again, we're only talking 90%. They're really good. But now, those of you math majors, okay, those of you that aren't in calculus can actually do math. Okay? How many virus particles are going to infest now? You've had 10 times 1,000. 10,000. And 90% of those got eaten. So there's 1,000 virus particles. Thank you very much. There's 1,000 virus particles that are going to infest 1,000 nose cells. Okay? And in 45 minutes, 1,000 times 1,000 viruses are released into your circulatory system. Now, what happens when your cells explode is they release all the stuff on the inside, all the cytoplasm. And what it ends up is, that's like, you call it slimy mucus, when your nose runs. So if this happens, why on earth aren't you just a puddle of cytoplasmic ooze? I mean, seriously. If 10% of all the viruses every time are just continuing on, you should be dead. You should be able to hold you in a cup. Right? Fortunately for you, there are other kind of cells in your body. And these cells are little memory cells, and they just run around looking for problems. Their job is to find things they don't recognize. And so they find something, and they have like this laser measuring device, and they open up their little PDAs and type in the stuff, and they send it off to the thymus gland. Now, in the thymus gland, there's some processing that's done, and then there's a search to look to see if this has ever been seen before by your body. Now, this is the first time these virus particles have ever been there. And so they assign it a number. It is assigned J27W. So J27W is now the name of this virus as far as they're concerned. And it sends out, the same cells in your thymus gland, send out instructions to other cells to make antibodies. Now they're specific for J27Ws. And so the antibodies are made and they're released. So you've got the white blood cells, and you've got the antibodies. And when the antibodies get there, they grab a hold of the virus particles. They do one of two things. Either just hold, help me, okay, calling for help, or they clump the viruses together, and then the white blood cells, okay? Because all that's happening, help me, and that stuff, you don't die. That's good news, okay? Remember, when you get sick, there's only two options. Get well or die. So you get well, but not right away, right? You go home from the party, you're feeling pretty good. Pick up at the morning and you can't breathe. Because all the virus and particles have done their thing. Okay. And so, if you rest, drink fluids, take care of yourself, your cold will last about 7 days. If you don't do anything, it'll last about a week. Now, 2 weeks later, you head out to another party because you've just become a party animal. This time, you realize you can't hold the drink and the food at the same time, so you bypass the drink and just go for the food. Smart. Okay? And you're standing there, and same person comes up. Here's your virus particle. Okay, this time, virus particles. Just 100. They hit. White blood cells. 10 of them get in. But this time, that little searcher that's running around with the electronic measuring device, it goes, and it gets right on its own little PDA there. J27W sends out immediate instructions. And so, what happens? Antibodies come. Help me. And so you've got, help me. And you don't get sick. That's called immunity. And that's how it works. Okay? Yes, I have two boys. My oldest boy is adopted, and my youngest son is organic. He was born. It's a long story, so I'm not going to tell the whole thing. But Doug was my youngest, and he was born large. Doug was 10 pounds, 10 ounces, and pretty much, my wife's about 5'2", and so it was, yes, it was an ordeal. Now, when my wife realized she was pregnant, she told me that I was going to be with her in the delivery room, and I said, you don't want me in the delivery room? She said, yes, I do. And no, you don't. Because when I was in college, I took a class on human reproduction, and one of the things we did in there was saw a movie called How to Have a Baby in a Bomb Shelter. Okay? I'm serious. That was the name of the movie. So I went to school. I went to college in the late 60s, so that was a big deal. And I spent like 90% of the movie with my head between my knees trying not to pass out or throw up. And I said, what you really don't want, you don't want, the doctor looking at you, and then there's this crash, and they turn around and see me on the floor. Okay. You really want them paying attention to you. And she said, you're going to be in there. And I said, okay. So we get ready to go, and we get into the labor room. And the labor room's interesting because there's just like a bed and a screaming person. And so my wife, like I said, very sweet person. So I'm there in support. And I'm holding her hand. And every time there's a contraction, she takes my hand and pushes all my fingers into one big finger. I'm convinced that if this goes on very long, I'm just going to look like that. I'm the great swimmer, but I'm not going to be able to, no opposable thumbs left. It's just, and finally she gets the epidural, and that's kind of fun, except that epidural puts you to sleep from your navel south. I mean, your legs go numb. Everything goes numb. So she's laying on her side because Doug wasn't breathing well if she was on her back. And as the contraction comes, she can't feel it, which is very good. My hand is salvaged. But her leg starts sliding off. And she's laying on the bed, and if the leg keeps going, she's just going to go right on the floor. So I have to sit now in front of her leg. So now it's not my fingers are not being crushed. I'm getting kidney damage. Her knee just goes, and smacks into my back. So after too many hours, the doctor comes in and says, well, it doesn't look like that's coming out. We're going to have to go in and get it. Now everything changes at that point. Because now it's not having a baby. It's having an operation. I have had operations. I understand operations. Okay? So that's kind of fun, right? I'm looking forward to this. And we go in there, and they do all their prep work stuff. And this is serious. It takes about 45 seconds from the time they make the first incision until they're holding my son. Now, they thought my son was going to be 8.5 pounds. As they pull out this 10-pound, 10-ounce, this guy's like, whoa! Now, fortunately, my wife at this point is reacting kind of goofily to the anesthesia. And so she has no remembrance of any of this. She's just shivering like crazy. And that's a good thing, because when they take the baby out, they lay Doug on her, and she can't even hold him, so I have to hold him first, and then they lay her back. But then they start sewing her up, okay? Because they have to. They cut her open, all right? And so I'm watching this because it's pretty interesting. Now, you can't tell my wife about, she does not know this. Okay? I'm serious. She has never heard this part of the story. So the doctor's sewing, that's this white tissue, and he's sewing it together. And so I say, innocently, oh, is that the superficial fascia? He stops, looks over his little mask, and says, what'd you do, read up on this to make sure I'm doing it right? And I said, no. It just looks a lot like the superficial fascia on the pigs we dissect. And he says, well, actually, no, this isn't the superficial fascia. So he starts teasing stuff away from up by where the cut is on the skin. He says, the superficial fascia is way up here. And he says, what I'm sewing is the deep fascia, and he just starts probing around. Uh-oh, somebody's ringing. Is that me? It is me. Heaven. Hold that thought. Amanda, I have to call you back, okay? I'm in the middle of story time. 514. Room 514, the lab. Okay. Bye. You sure your sins will find you out? Okay. Now, I think that's the end of that story. Doug is born, right? Okay, my wife's sewn up. Good. Here we go. Oh, my career preference as a child was to be a professional athlete. That was my goal, right? And it worked out pretty well until I was 14. I peaked physically at age 14. And age 14, as a Pony League player, I hit 440, pitched a perfect game and a no-hitter, and things were good. Okay. Then came high school. And before high school started, I actually had stitches in my knee, which is a story I'm not going to tell. And then from the stitches in my knee, this is what has happened to me until now. Okay. It's a long list. I have broken my left ankle twice. I've broken my shoulder. Okay. I tore a quadriceps muscle in half in my left leg. I tore the groin muscle off the bone in my right leg and tore a branch off the artery. I have broken the toe. I've broken both wrists. I've torn both hamstrings to the point of bleeding. This last time I tore them, it took like a week before I could actually walk. I've broken my nose. Let's see. I have a torn rotator cuff. What else? I wrote them down so I wouldn't forget. Oh yeah, I was born with a hernia. I have a ruptured disc, which I'll tell you about a little bit on. I've had 2 concussions And that's about it. So that was kind of a wake-up call that I'm probably not going to be an athletic career, right? Maybe an athletic trainer, but from personal experience, if I would have bought stock in like Procter and Gamble or Band-Aids, I'd be really rich by now. So is that the whole list? I'm done. What's the next thing say? Oh yes. Okay. So now, part of what I do and in what I've done in class for almost 40 years is use those particular injuries as starting points for instruction. No, not really. There's a fun story. So here we go. When I was playing football as a sophomore, it was October the 6th, remember the date, and I got hit right here. And it hurt like crazy. I mean, and I just about crawled off the field. And I get over there, and the coach is all, "What's the matter?" And I don't know, man. It hurts like crazy. Now, back then, the basic philosophy was, if there's no blood and there's no bone sticking out, why are you off the field? And so he says, well, I said, "Man, it hurts really bad." He said, "Well, jog down there and back." So I did, and he said, "Get back in there." So I went back in. I played, and then about 3 weeks later, we're running 100-yard sprints at the end of practice because that was you had to run as many 100-yard sprints as you gave up points. And the team that I played on can best be described as awful. We were at one point, the school I went to was 0-39 in league games. And so we held the record of San Diego CIF record of 15 consecutive losses. And then we tied that record. So anyway, we weren't very good. But so we did a lot of running. We were in great shape, though, but we weren't very good football players. And so we're running, and when we would run these 100-yard sprints, invariably somebody would be running into me about the 50-yard line. And I was fine. I just got ticked off. And we get to the end, and I said, "Look, stop running into me." And the guy says, "No, I'm not running into you. You're running into me." And I said, "No, I'm not running into you. I'm running straight down the field. You're running into me." He said, Yeah. So we're arguing. And he said, "Look, well, I'll show you." And you know what hash marks are on the field? Those white lines. So he says, "You line up." I said, "I'll line up here, and you line up here. We'll see who's running into who." So we take off. About the 40-yard line, sure enough, smack. We're smacking into each other. I look down, and I'm way over here. Now, I can't figure out why. I finally go to the doctor. I think it was because I got stepped on and they were taking my toenail off at that point. But anyway, and so I'm sitting up on the examination table, and the doctor comes in and he says, "What's that hole in your leg?" I said, "What?" He said, "There's a big depression in your leg." And I said, "Oh, I don't know." So he starts poking and he says, "This is deep." Wow. So he said, grabs my hand and said, "Feel that?" "Oh, yeah." I said, "That's the bone. Now you can try pushing on your leg, and you probably aren't going to hit bone because you have muscles in the way." And what had happened was apparently between the thigh pad and the knee pad, the face guard had hit right there, and it snapped the muscle just in half. Now I was impressed that happened anyway. But then I went to that body exhibit, with the cadavers, and I actually saw how big that muscle is. And I'm seriously impressed that got torn in half. Because that's a big thing. And so what was happening was, because I only had 3 of the 4 muscles here, every time I took a step with my left leg, it was shorter than the step with my right leg. So basically, when I was running what I thought straight, I was just running in a giant circle. And if I'd have kept running, I'd have come back to where I started. But so that was that. But they ended up. I had to wait. Well, I didn't have to wait, but by the time they figured out what it was, I had the surgery in December, and by then it had healed up on itself. And so the scar, which is supposed to be like this long, is now like way up here because they kept trying to find the end of it, cutting this longer and longer. And they ended up just shredding it and laying on top of each other. So you can still push. If you want to, not you can't do this, but if I do it, I push real hard. I can feel the bone. So I don't recommend tearing that muscle in half. Oh, the disc rupture. Now, the most serious injury I ever had was when I ruptured a disc. And At the time, I didn't know it had ruptured, but I was playing for University of California, San Diego. And I have to tell you this part. We played our first game before the school year started, and UCSD at that point, well, I played on the only football team that UCSD ever had. We were for 1 year, okay? And I thought my high school team was bad. We lost to Caltech. Caltech had lost 35 in a row. They beat us, and they stopped playing football after that because they figured this is as good as it's going to get. So the first game, we get beat 40-0. Okay. The only redeeming thing is my high school team got beat 41-0 the next night. So, but we're there on the field, and the cheerleaders come. Now, they've never been to school that early before in their life because they've only had to cheer for basketball before. And, you know, the University of California cheer, UCSD or UCLA or UC whatever it is, okay? So they're going, UCSD. And then the second time they do it, they're US. No, wait a minute, stop. No. They're spelling 4 letters wrong, okay? So this is the football program I'm involved in. And we had to play anybody that had an open spot in their schedule. And the open spot, one of the spots we got was Cal Lutheran. Now, Cal Lutheran was the defending small school champion at the time. And we have, like 30 guys. And we go up there on a big school bus. And we show up, and they must have 200 players. There's everywhere. And they're big, and they're fast, and we're not either one of those. And so the game starts, and I have to tell you that we were really good at punting. We did a lot of punting. And so if you punt, when you punt, you have to have somebody that stands in front of the kicker. They have different names, but if you watch football games, there's always one guy that's in front of the kicker, and his job is to pick the most dangerous rusher and block. Okay. Now, there's 2 things you have to be able to do that job. One, you have to be able to figure out who's coming fast. And second, don't back up. Okay? Because if you back up, you get like a football up your fanny. So, I got to be the up guy because I learned those 2 things. Look for people who are running fast and don't back up. Okay? So I'm the protector. And this probably, like, I don't know, it's still the first half. I mean, this is probably our 6th or 7th punt. And the guy punts, and the rule was if he punted and it went over this way, I was to go with the ball, and he went to the other side in case they ran a reverse. Right? Like they were ever going to do that because they didn't have to. But so they kick the ball this time, and it goes over here, and so I take off. Now they're trying to set up what's called a picket line, and they've got guys lined up about every 10 yards, and they're looking to the inside. And I see this. Yeah. Right. University of California. I've been there, right? So I figure if I get in between, behind these guys and the sideline, they're looking in where all the other people are. So I get between them. I'm behind these guys, and here comes the guy with the ball. And one of the guys turns around, and he sees me, right? And he buries his helmet right here. Just smack. And I go down. And I get up, and I'm looking for a flag, and sure enough, they actually called a penalty. And so I jog off. Now, remember, this is the same time frame. There was no blood, they're good. Also, quarterbacks never ran out of bounds. Okay, you just did. I mean, today, everybody slides, runs out of bounds, throws the ball away. We didn't do that. Since I was playing quarterback and linebacker, I'm playing quarterback on offense, and we run a sweep. It was supposed to be a pass, but when they're right here, you just turn it into a sweep. And so I'm running, and the guy tackling me, and I'm trying to... And so I run off, and then we go to punt. And so the coach says, Downey, get in there, it's punt. So I very dutifully take a step and fall flat, face down. And I'm laying there, and he's, what's the matter? I said, I don't know. And he says, I said, my leg doesn't move. So there's silence. And they're rustling, and they put me up on the bench. And they they take me in at halftime, and I mean, I can't move my leg. And so they put me in, they shoot me with something, and I'm laying on this bench. And then we have to go home afterwards. Now, we got there on a school bus. And they really, you don't want to, when your back is damaged, and you can't, your leg doesn't feel, they don't want you to do that. So my parents are there. And so they ask my parents, can you take him home? Oh, we'd be happy to. Okay, so my parents had a 1968 Chevrolet Chevelle, which is a nice car, except it's not, that wide. And so I'm laying in the back seat, but I can't lay in the back seat. So my legs are bent and my feet are up on the window. Okay. And I'm laying there. And the reason I'm in the back seat is because my dad's driving, my mom's sitting in the middle, and another guy got hurt in the game. And his inflated, just huge. And they're positive he's ruptured his spleen. And so he's going home with us. Because and every time you go over those little bumps on the road, man, and it's all the way home. My legs are up, and we get to the hospital, UCSD hospital, and they come running out because there was no cell phones, but they had called and said, so we honk and they come running out, and they take this guy first because then they come out again, and this guy comes out, and he looks like he's maybe 19, 20, 21. And he starts fiddling around with me, and my mom, bless her heart, says, don't you think we ought to wait for the doctor? And Thomas Laughlin, Jr., MD, said, I'm the chief orthopedic surgeon here at the hospital. And, so anyway. So I am 18 years old, okay? Just about this tall, not quite this wide. I weigh 210 pounds. I'm 6 feet tall. They take me to pediatrics. Because I'm 18, right? Now, pediatrics, beds are 6 feet long. Okay? So my head is touching, my feet are touching. Okay? They give me a pediatrics hospital gown. You need to understand, hospital gowns are not noted for their... Anyway, and so the hospital gown is this long. I'm not making this up. It's this long. It doesn't tie in the back. It will not go across that way, all right? And meanwhile, while this is happening to me, we find out the next day that the guy that we took down there, that what had happened, he got hit so hard that he'd inflated his stomach with air. He spent the night burping, and they sent him home. True story. So I'm laying in this pediatric bed with this on, and the morning the nurse comes in and she says, "What are you doing here?" Like it's my fault. So I said, "This is where she says, you don't belong in here. You belong on the 5th floor in orthopedics." And so they bring me a pediatrics robe, which is this long, and won't meet in the middle. Okay? And they bring me a pediatrics wheelchair, which I can only sit in like this, which is good, because remember that the robe is this long. And so I think I'm quite a show as I'm going to the elevator. And I get up to the 5th floor, and they put me in traction. Now, if you've never had traction, the best way I could describe it is they pretty much try to pull you apart. It's kind of like the rack, but it's legal. And they put this thing under your neck, and they hung this weight, over a pulley, and they put a belt on. And I'm laying there, and about, I don't know, probably 3 or 4 hours later, this nurse comes in, and she says, "It's time to go to physical therapy." Better than being stretched to death. So they take me down to the basement. Physical therapy is in the basement. And I go there, and the lady girl, the physical therapist says, "Well, just lay down." So I lay down, and she says, "Now, here's what I want you to do." I said, "We're going to do some tests to see what's wrong." And she said, "The first thing you're going to do is you're just going to hold your toes up." These are toes now. So You're going to hold your toes up. I'm going to pull on them, and you're going to not don't let me pull them down. Okay? Now, at this point in time, I have 24-inch thighs and 17-inch calves. There's no way on the planet she is pulling my toes down. And I know that. So she says, which one is hurt? I said, this one. She said, okay, let's try the other one. She starts pulling. This is good. Lean into it, girl. Yeah. Nothing. What? That's good. I said, I know. He says, let's try the other one. Okay. So I like this. And this. Okay. Hold it up. Now, I have no idea what's going on. Okay. She said, no, hold it up. I said, I am. She says, oh. So she pushes it back up and says, let's try that again. Hold it up. Now, this time I'm watching. So I know there's a problem right there. And, but they put me in a back brace and sent me home because I didn't want to miss school. True story. So 9 weeks later, at the end of the quarter, they're going to do surgery on me. And this is way before MRIs and this kind of stuff. They did something called a myelogram. And a myelogram, they don't tell you about this ahead of time, but they schedule this. And so I go and they lay me down on, there's this wedge-shaped piece of foam rubber, and I'm leaning over it like this. And they put straps over me. And then they take a needle and they put it in about right here. And then they unscrew the plungy part, and they put another needle inside of it, and they squirt dye into your back. Okay. Now, because they're trying to see where it leaks out. That sounds cool. What they don't tell you is, in order to find out where it's leaking, they rotate the bed. Okay. So I'm laying there like this, and all of a sudden the bed's going, ah. They're turning it, and I'm, ah. And all of a sudden, this guy's over standing on the side, and they're looking at what's called a fluoroscope, which is probably they wouldn't use anymore now, but it's like an X-ray movie. So they're looking at this, and the guy's like, and all of a sudden he goes, oh my goodness. No, okay, that's not what you want to hear. Seriously. And I can't see him because I'm, and I hear him run out of the room. Oh, this is not good. And so he's out and he comes back and he's got these guys with, look, why? I can't see. What? Look at what? And he's all, give me a ruler. What? He's all, yeah. And there's cheering. These guys are cheering. And so I find out later that there's writing on the machine. He showed me afterwards. There's writing on the machine. And what they would do is they would measure the X-ray spot of the ruptured disc, because the disc material spreads out. And I'll have you know that I held the hospital record for the size of the rupture of a disc. Okay. And so then they go in and they do the surgery. Now, surgery that they do is they take a chisel, okay, and they use a hammer and they smack your vertebrae. And then they take a scalpel and they shave your hip. And then they take the shavings and they put it in the broken bone, and it like makes a fence, heals like a big fence. Now, in 1968, this is cutting edge technology. Okay. In 2005, when I had the vertebrae, the disc above it finally gave up, there's an MRI that's being done, and the surgeon at that point says, well, we'd like to go in there, but he said, there's a lot of bone there. That's pretty primitive work. Hey, I felt like smacking him. You punk. This is old. This is older than you are, and so, but I digress. Anyway, so where was I? No, wouldn't this story? Chisel. Okay. So once they do this, they don't ask you if you want pain medication. They just give it to you. Now, the pain medication they were giving me was called Demerol. And I found out later that Demerol people break into hospitals and steal it because it's hallucinogenic. And so at the time, the way they explained it to me was the concoction they were using, your body broke it down, and so the next shot had to have more because otherwise it wasn't good. And so they're giving me shots, and I'm not going to tell you about I don't know about you, but I don't go to the bathroom well at all laying down. Okay. So you can let your imagination run on that one. But like sometime on the second day, it really doesn't hurt that bad. You know, I mean, it honestly does not. I mean, it's considering. So she comes in to give me the shot, the nurse, and I said, "Do I have to have that?" She, no. I said, well, then I don't want it. Apparently, nobody ever says that after back surgery, because she's got this befuddled look as she leaves. I said, well, if you need it, you just call and I'll come back. Okay. So that was about, I don't know, sometime in the morning. Well, about 3:30 in the afternoon, it starts to hurt. And so I pushed the button. And then the new nurse now, because they shift change at 3 o'clock, the new nurse comes and she says, yes. And I said, can I have my pain shot? And she kind of looks at her watch and says, well, it's a little bit early, but you're a big guy. Sure, why not? So she goes and gets, all right, here we go. I was on shot number 5. Okay, I didn't have shot number 6. Okay. She doesn't look. Now, I should have had shot number 5 again because of the skip. She gives me shot number 7. Okay. Now, shot number 7 is now 2 doses over what I'm supposed to have. Okay. So she gives me the shot, and I just you just melt. It's so, oh, wow. And you can't move, and it doesn't matter, you know. Oh, this is great, you know. And I'm laying there for a while. I have no idea how long. And it suddenly dawns on me that I can see myself laying on the bed. Now, my body says, you're laying on the bed. My brain says, yes, there you are, laying on the bed. So there's this discrepancy, right? And so I figure I'll solve this. Now, what I have to tell you next, at Disneyland at the time, there was a ride called Journey into Inner Space. It's where Star Tours is right now. And there was a giant, like 15-foot concrete snowflake that was outside. And you got into the ride and you went into a water molecule. It got smaller and smaller. So that's just background information. So now, you know when you close your eyes, you can see colors? This is now December 17th, 18th, somewhere in there. So it's close to Christmas. So I close my eyes, and red and green snowflakes appear. Giant red and green snowflakes appear, falling from the ceiling. Now, so I've got my eyes closed. Here come these giants. I can't move. And so I realize if I keep laying here with my eyes closed, I'm going to get crushed by giant red and green snowflakes. So I open my eyes, and they go away. But there I am, laying on the bed. So I alternate between closing my eyes and being crushed by snowflakes and opening my eyes and seeing myself on the bed. And I'm trying to get to the nurse call button. And it's and finally I hit the call button, and I can hear the nurse coming. And as she gets to the door, I yell, "Watch out for the snowflakes!" All the blood drains from her face. And I hear her running back to the nurse's station. And she comes back, and she came in and she said, "I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry." And she sat beside me for 3 hours, patting my hand, saying, "It'll be all right, it'll be all right." And I kept saying, "There I am. Watch out for the snowflakes." So that was that story. Which one? Is it time for that already? I'm ahead of schedule. Okay. This is uncommon. Normally the stories just keep going. Some of the, was there anything that I missed? Wow. That's amazing. Okay, we'll go on to the, I don't know how, if you are a hunter or a fisher person, more power to you. I am neither. I do have a friend that is like the great white hunter. He has 3 gun safes that are all, like huge things. And he was always bothering me to go hunting with him. And you need to go hunting. No, I don't. Yes, you do. You need to go hunting. I'm not going hunting. You need to go hunting. No, I'm not going to go hunting. And he would call me at the beginning of deer season every year and try to talk me into it. And every year I would say no. And finally I just got tired of it because then he started calling at the beginning of elk season, and the beginning of some other season, And so I finally just said, okay, in my brain, I'm going to say yes. So he calls me. You need to go hunting. I said, okay. No, really. What? I said yes. Who is this? No, seriously, I will go hunting with you. Okay. I have some rules. What? Well, the rules are I'm not going anywhere overnight with you, period. And so wherever we go, we have to go out and come back. And at one time, one day, if you ever call me again, I will buy a gun and I will hunt you. That's funny. I said, try me. Well, okay, where should we go? I don't know. How about the Wild Animal Park? Oh, no, we can't. They'd arrest us. Not us. Oh, no, be serious. I don't know any place. So he said, well, so he starts naming places. Finally, about 3 or 4, and I said, that one. Oh, great choice, great choice. I said, write this down. Figure its directions. Okay, so I write down. Suddenly, it's a phone number. And he says, call the guy, let him know we're coming. Click. Right? Now, I hate the telephone. Okay? I mean, if the telephone had never been invented, my life would be better. Okay? I mean, I get physically sick thinking about calling people that I don't know. Talking to all of you is no big deal. Talking to one strange person on the phone is horrible. Okay? So, I hate this. And, but I figured, one time he's out of my hair, it's worth it. So hi there, you don't know me, but I was wondering if we could come hunt deer on your property. Okay, yeah. Oh, my friend gave me this number. I told him his name. Okay. Yeah, well, you care when we come? Just call ahead. Okay, I'll do that. Click. So I call my friend back and I said, okay, the guy said we can come. He said, when are we going? I said, how about next weekend? Perfect. I'll pick you up at 4:30. I said, that's a little bit late, isn't it? We've got to be back. He said, no, in the morning. Okay. Now, I would have, now from this job, I get up at like 3. So 4:30 isn't really that early, but it was back then. And so I set my alarm. I never set an alarm. And so I set the alarm for 4:27. Figuring it can't take more than 3 minutes to get ready to go hunting. What do you do? Go. So I wake up a little bit early and I turn off the alarm and I'm in there and I get ready. I'm putting my boots on. Because I have actually found, they're work boots, but I'm putting on boots. And I hear this car pull into the driveway. I look and it's like 4:25. He's early. So I'm still putting my boot on. And all of a sudden I hear, beep, 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 beep. He's honking his horn in my driveway at 4:30 in the morning. Okay. So I'm trying to I get to, shut up, stop honking. People are sleeping. You told me 4:30, it's 4:26. I've got 4 minutes. Stop honking. So I go back in and my wife is now awake and she's all, who's that? You don't want to know. I leave. I know better sometimes. So I leave. And I get out. And this guy now, he has a Toyota Land Cruiser. Right. Now, this is an original Toyota Land Cruiser. It looks like a Jeep that's been shrunken. And it's got plastic thing that has plastic doors, plastic roof, plastic windows. It's like a plastic tent that you put over this thing. And so I open my door, and a sleeping bag falls out. And so what's this? I think it's a sleeping bag. I said, I know what it is. What's it doing? I thought you might change your mind when you spend the night. I said, we're not spending the night. Should I leave this here? No, just stick it in the bag. So I take the sleeping bag, and I look behind the seat. There's 2 more sleeping bags. There's a tent. There's a cooler. There's 3 rifles. Who knows what else, and enough ammunition to invade a small South American country. And we're going hunting for one day. So I said, there isn't any room. He just said, just stuff it back there. So I stick it in, and now it looks like there's a wart on the roof. So I get in and sit down, and we take off. Right? Now, the old Toyota Land Cruisers, apparently the suspension system was non-existent. I think what they did was just weld the axles to the frame. Because everything you hit went from the tire to the frame to the seat to you. Okay. So we're going along. And this is on my street. This isn't like this. And the sleeping bag works its way loose. So it's you get on the freeway. And we drive east in San Diego County, and we turn off at, the only thing I know, there's 2 things on this road that I know of. One is Barrett Junction Cafe, which used to have all-you-could-eat fish fries on Friday, which is why I know about it. And second is Tijuana, or Tecate, actually. And so, I'm not looking forward to this. We take off. We're on this road. And he says, look out for the turn. So I dutifully stare out the window. I have no idea what the turn looks like. He hasn't said anything except look out for the turn. So I'm just looking. And all of a sudden he slams on the brake. The seat backs on Toyota Land Cruisers didn't latch. So everything slides forward. And now I'm leaning like this. And I can't push everything back because now we're on this dirt road. Okay? And it's not really a road. It's 2 ruts. Okay? And the ruts are a little bit wider apart than the Land Cruiser's wheels. So we're either like this in a rut or we're like this in a rut, bouncing and making noise. The good news is I'm convinced there's not an animal within 100 miles that hasn't heard us coming. The chances of us shooting a deer today is non-existent. And so I will have served my time without shooting a deer. We drive, seemed like, I don't know, an hour. Probably was, 20 minutes. And we stop. We're sitting there. Well, you have to go talk to the guy. I have to go talk to the guy? Yeah, it's his rule. Guy that calls has to talk. I don't even know the guy. I don't really know him either. Well, where does he live? Up there. No, it's dark. It's dark. So I look out. It's dark. All I see is dark. Where? Up there. And if I look real hard, there's like dark. Okay. And so he says, it's up on that hill. Okay. So I take off and I start walking and I get about, 15 steps from the car and it's, watch out for the barbed wire. Now I'm feeling my way along like this, you know. And I get to the barbed wire, and I'm holding it down. Now, I've had an experience with a barbed wire fence before, okay? When I was about 10, me and my two cousins found a cow carcass, old bones, and we'd stuffed our pockets full of cow bones, and we were racing back to my parents who were cleaning off this property that they owned in the Cuyamaca Mountains. And my stupid cousins, they were going to go all the way down this road and come back. And I was going to go straight down the hill, okay? And I found out why they went all the way down. As I hit the bottom of the hill at about 900 miles an hour, I found out there was 3 strands of barbed wire fence that were covered up by the bushes that they hadn't cleaned off yet. So I impaled myself. Twang! So I know about barbed wire. Okay? So I'm feeling along. And it slips out of my hand. Whack! Okay. And so I rip. Oh, man. It's like, you know, and I start walking, and I feel blood running down my leg. And it's just, and looks like there's this kind of road thing that's going up like this. Found out later it's what they call a water road. It's where the water all runs down when it rains. And so it's uneven, and I'm trying not to, so I finally get to the top, and now I can see something. It's just a little bit lighter. And I can see something that looks like it might be a house, but there's something else over here. So I go for the big thing. I head for what I think is a house. And you ever watch Bonanza? On like, or you little whimpers, you know, on like TV Land or someplace. But, you know, it's this big front porch, you know, wooden house, and it's dark. It's pitch black. Now, I've seen enough, you know, movies and stuff to know that come up on somebody in the middle of nowhere and it's pitch black, they're going to shoot. And then they're going to ask questions after they shoot. And so I'm looking around, and I figure, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'll get up on the porch as quietly as I can. I'll go to the door, and I'll knock as quietly as I can. And then when nobody comes, I'll go back down and tell them I couldn't raise anybody, and we'll have to leave. So I'm at the door, and I knock just like this. And I turn, and I hear, and I turn around, and I get blasted in the eyeballs by this light beam. And I hear, what do you want? And I called you on the phone, and you said I could come and my friend and I could shoot deer. He says, oh. Steps out. He's got one of those flashlights, like, 15 D batteries. And, 4,000 watts. And now he shines it down to the ground, and he says, well, good to meet you. He said, nice to meet you, but I was supposed to check in, and then I got to go back to. I said, well, Lemmy, ever talk to an old person that lives by themselves? Me and the missus, we moved out here in 1947. No one, wait a minute. I said, we left. That's 45, 46. I don't know. 47. It must be 40, maybe it's 49. But me and the missus, no, it must have been more like, And so he's going, and he starts off telling me about his family and his daughters and all his weird things. And I'm making a little sympathetic noise. Oh, yeah, yeah. And every time I make a little noise, I back up, figuring if I could get off the porch, it's still dark enough, I can make a run for it. Okay? And by the time the searchlight finds me, I'll be out of his range. So I'm just ready to step off the step. And he says, by the way, there's one thing I'd like you to do for me. Man, my friend has set me up. He set me up here. We have to do work. I'm thinking, okay, I have to chop wood. I have to stack wood. I have to do something. Well, I said, we really don't. We're only going to be here today, and we're going to leave, and we're not going to spend the night. And he said, no. I said, this won't take long. Just follow me. I'm thinking real hard about not following him, but I figure he's got a gun, So we walk over, and I see where he's going. That's that other thing. Then I could see now it's like a shed. As we walk by, I see a stack of firewood. I knew it. I got to chop wood, stack firewood. We walk past that. We get to the shed. I've got to do something in the shed. We walk just past the shed. He stops. He shines his flashlight. He says, I have this problem. I said, well, okay. I need you to help me. I said, well, what's the problem? I said, well, there it is. I don't see any problem. Sure you do. Look hard over there. What is that? That's the problem. Well, I know, but what is it? That's my mule. I said, what? He said, yeah, that's my mule. I said, you've heard of swayback? This is V-back. Okay? This thing is, one ear is like this, the other is, okay, and I said, that's horrible. He said, I know it. I said, well, what's the problem? Well, it's really old. He said, it doesn't have any teeth. And we have to feed it with a turkey baster. So I really don't want to feed you. So I want you to feed it. Well, what do you want then? I want you to shoot my mule. And I said, what? I said, I don't even shoot. I want to shoot deer. I said, I'm not shooting your mule. I said, you shoot it. Well, I can't shoot it. Why not? Because if I shot it, then my girls would know. It's like their pet. We've had that thing since 1960. No, don't worry about it. I said, it's okay. But I said, I'm not shooting your mule. If shooting your mule is what it takes to shoot deer on your property, I said, I'm not doing it. You sure? I said, yes. I said, I'm not shooting your mule no matter what. He says, well, okay. Everybody asks, they won't do it. I said, well, then you shoot it. Tell them somebody else did it. No, man, my girls, no. I can't lie to my girls. Well, I'm leaving. Okay, have a good hunt. So I start back down the hill. Now, as I'm going down the hill, I'm thinking about this. Okay, first of all, my neighbors hate me because this guy has woken them up at 4:30 in the morning, honking in my driveway. Secondly, I've had to go up and I've been asked to do something really stupid by an old man that I don't even know after I've listened to his life story. And now I'm going back down to do something else I don't want to do, and it's not even light yet. And as I'm going down, I'm getting angry, and I step in a rut, and I sprain my ankle. And I told you I broke the thing twice earlier. And I go down like a shot, and I could feel it swelling up in the boot. So now I'm limping, and I'm going down. And as I'm limping, I'm really ticked off. Okay, I was just kind of angry. Now I'm serious, bad. And I'm going down, and I forgot about the barbed wire. And I smack into that. So now I've got bleeding cuts on the front and bleeding cut in here. And I limp over, and I look at, and I can, now it's just light enough, I can see in the Land Cruiser, and here's my friend. Now I am angry. Okay? And I'm figuring I've got to do something to get this guy back. That's all there is to it. And I thought, okay, what I'm going to do is I know what I'm going to do. So I go over and I kick the tire. Okay? That doesn't wake him up. Just hurt my toe. So I'm now angry I was, mad I was. Now I'm hurt and angry and mad. So I grab the door to the Land Cruiser. I pull it open. I forgot it was plastic. There's this rip. And I'm holding the door in my hand. My friend, that wakes my friend up though. I said, I can't believe it. What? I said, I can't believe you sent me up to the meanest old man I ever met in my entire life. I said he opened the door, tried to blind me with a flashlight. Then he took a big gun. He threatened to shoot me, chased me down the hill. Look at this. I'm bleeding. I'm bloody. I said, he called me names I've never heard. He said, I didn't mean that. Shut up. I've got to do something. I've got to do something. I've got to get this guy back because we're not staying here. I said, give me your gun. You shouldn't. I said, shut up, give me a gun. So he reaches in the back and he gets me this rifle and he said, okay, I'm going to shoot something. How do you work this? Or he said, it's not right. I just do it, shoot it. I'll shoot his fence. That's stupid. I'll shoot that tree. No. See up there? Yeah. I'm going to shoot his mule. My friend thought, shut up! Now, this is hilarious. Now, I'm not mad at him. This is so funny. I go, now, I'm not so he can see. I've turned my back. Because all he sees is, and he thinks I'm just still mad, okay? I'm not turning around, though, because he's going to suffer. Okay? So I put my elbows up on the hood of the Land Cruiser, okay? And I take aim. Now I'm here and listen to me. You can't, don't. I said, shut up! Now, there's 3 chances of me hitting this mule, okay? Slim, fat, and none. So, I pull the trigger. Echo, 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 echo. The mule slides down the side of the shed. I am shocked. I figured the sound scared him to death. Because I'm pretty positive the bullet didn't come anywhere close. My friends all, I'm almost ready to turn around. Because now this is what I've been waiting for. And he's panic stricken. But I'm not ready yet. So I'm sitting there trying not to turn around laughing. I hear a sound. Don't pay any attention to it. I hear the door open. All of a sudden I hear 2 shots. I turn around. He's coming, throwing the rifle in the back. I said, what's going on? He said, well, you got his mule. I got 2 of his cows. Let's get out of here. Now, of all the stories that I've told you today, that's the only one that's not true. Okay? But I sucked you all in again, didn't I? So for 39 years, I have been privileged to teach people like you. And thank you for being willing to be sucked in. I will miss people like you. And I can't say anything else, but I'm going to cry, which is okay. But I suppose if any of you want to say something, it'd be okay, but I'm holding the mic. I learned a long time ago, never give the mic away. But seriously, thank you all for coming, and I appreciate you, each and every one. So, thank you. The sucking noise, yes. When you go to the dentist, you know, they have those things they put in your ear. Then it gets stuck on your tongue. That one. What else?
Oh, yeah.
The lights? Oh, that's my father-in-law. My son. My father-in-law is colorblind and was colorblind, and he was seriously colorblind, black, white, gray. So you know when you're driving and you go down these on the coastal highways and stuff, and you get to those little touristy towns. Well, most stoplights are like this, but in touristy towns they turn them, and he honestly could not tell, and so he didn't know if they were red, yellow, green, or red, yellow, green, and so whenever he came to a sideways stoplight, he stopped. But it didn't make any difference which one was lit up. And then if people honked, he knew that was green. And if they didn't honk, he knew that was red. But Doug, because of the way genetics works, had a 50-50 chance of being colorblind. And we didn't know he was colorblind until he was in kindergarten. Now, Doug is one of those kids that you never had to ask, how was your day? Okay. You'd go to pick him up, the door would open. As the door closed, it was a verbal hemorrhage. And one day I was taking him home from school, and he's talking a mile a minute, and all of a sudden the back seat goes silent. And I look in the rearview mirror. Doug, you okay? There's this quizzical look, and he said, yeah? So what's the matter? I forgot what I was saying. Because he just talked. It didn't make any difference. And anyway, so when Doug was growing up, He-Man was the cartoon of choice. Now, He-Man was human colored, but Skeletor had a clone of He-Man that was green. Some of you know. Okay. So Doug comes home from kindergarten one day, and he's just in tears. Now, when I would come home from school, when Doug was playing around in the neighborhood, I knew where he was because I could hear. Doug was always in charge, making rules. Okay. And Doug has a really good memory. He once read an entire Shakespeare play in 90 minutes, sitting there just reading it. And I had actually read the play, and I asked him questions, and he actually read the play in 90 minutes and knew stuff. So he really remembers stuff. So he would read the rules of games. And then, when you played him, you only got the rules you needed until it was to his advantage. Okay? So Doug liked making rules, and he was loud, and he could hear them all. So anyway, so he comes home, and he is distressed. And he goes storming into his bedroom. We're not saying anything. Comes back out, and he's holding 2 crayons. Flesh-colored and green. And he says, which one is He-Man? Because what had happened at school, he had colored He-Man green, the clone color. And his buddies just laid into him. And so one of the first learns Doug Downing learned to read was green. Because he would never, seriously, the rest of his life in school, he would never use a crayon that didn't have a label. Because he would, that's how he knew his colors. So, not very funny, but it is true. Yes. Oh, John? Oh, yeah. I played football. Well, I started out as a sophomore. I was the number 4 linebacker in a 2-linebacker system. And early in the first quarter, one of the starting linebackers got hurt. He was out for the season. And so I became the number 3 linebacker. Before the end of the first quarter, the other starting linebacker got hurt, and I became a starter. Okay? So I'm a sophomore, I'm a starter. John, the other linebacker, really smart guy. He's a doctor, was this junior class president, senior class president, really nice guy. As soon as he put his football helmet on and snapped the chin strap, his brain turned off. He went from smart to reptile. Okay? And John could not talk on the football field. Literally could not enunciate words. Now, I told you how good our football team was. Our defense had 2 calls. It was regular or goal line. That's it. And then if we did regular, the linebacker in charge had to say rat if you wanted the lineman to go to the right, or lion if you wanted to go. That's our whole defense, okay? And so what John's job was, because he was the junior, I was the sophomore, John's job was in the huddle to say, regular, ready, break, and clap his hands. And then when everybody got out, he was supposed to say rat or lion. That's his whole job. So I'm in there for my first play, and everybody's waiting. And And there's nothing. For example, John, what do we do? Oh! The other team comes out, lines up. So, of course, the coach takes me out because I'm the last one on. And he says, I send you in the game, the whole thing falls apart. I said, Coach, we can't understand John. What do you mean you can't understand? He can't talk. Get back in there and send him out. So I get back in there. John, go out. So John goes out, and I call the play. And, regular, ready, break. Wasn't hard. And so they send John back in with the defensive back because John can't talk. And the defensive back says, Coach says John can't talk. You call the defense. And so I went from fourth string linebacker to starting linebacker, defensive signal caller, because John can't talk. John also didn't have much of a sense of humor with his football helmet on. The coach, our linebacker coach, his brother coached for the Chargers. So he would come in once a week with some new technique the Chargers had. And it was usually some bogus thing he'd made up. And so we all knew, ha ha, Coach, that's really funny. John would always go, oh! And so he comes this one time and he says, the Chargers have a new technique to find out if a running back is faking carrying the ball. Because when you fake carrying the ball, you bend over like this and they can't see you. So he said, it's called the karate. And he said, you take your hand and you hit him right here like this. And then their head comes up and you can see. Now, bro, yeah, Coach, right. Okay. See, what do football players wear? Helmet. Okay. Hard, plastic helmet. And then they have that other thing here called a face guard. Okay, there's about this much space. You got about 100% chance of smacking the helmet or the face guard and breaking your hand. Okay, so this is, ha ha ha, Coach, really funny. Well, we only had, there was 19 players on my varsity football team. And so we couldn't even have 11-on-11 scrimmage. So we did what they call half-line scrimmage, center, guard, tackle, tight end. And so I was running offense while John was playing defense, and then he would come over and run offense when I played defense. But the first play we call in this half-line scrimmage, after this little exhibition of the karate, is one of the favorite plays the other team ran, which was a fake to the fullback, and then throw a pass out and that over there in the flat. So I have been hammered by coaches about not faking. Didn't carry the fake out. So man, I am faking. So I come over, and all of a sudden, boom! My head goes up. Oh! John goes out to cover the flat. I'm sitting on the ground. Tears are streaming down my face. I can't see. I can't breathe. And I get up and I go back to the huddle. And they have to take me back to the huddle because so John actually thought it worked. And even though I didn't, I found out I was 60. That was 1966. In 1976, my wife went to the nose doctor because she had nose polyps. Told the nose doctor that I had used nose spray, and he said, "When did your husband break his nose?" He said, "I don't think he ever has." So I go to the doctor, and I'm sitting there, and he comes in. He said, "When did you break your nose?" And I said, "I never broke my nose." He said, "Yeah, right." And he says, "Your nose cartilage," said, "it's all bent." Said, "That's why you have to use nasal spray because it swells up." And so I said, "We'll fix that." So I never broke my nose. I mean, my nose looked just like this. It wasn't like, it was, and so they went in and they cut it out. But what they were supposed to do was shave it off. But they found out that when they got in there, instead of being just bent, it actually made it S-shaped. So they had to lift up the nasal membrane and cut it out. And then they put it on an anvil and smashed it flat. Then they put it back in and laid the membrane back down. Then they stuffed my nose with 2-inch gauze pads covered with Vaseline. That was fine until it was time. The day was time to go home. Then they have to take the gauze pads out, and if it starts to bleed, you have to stay in the hospital. And so this is hard to do holding this mic. Come over. Stand away. Don't be in the way. You're a mic stand. Good. There we go. Now, so the doctor comes. He's holding a bedpan right here, and he's got a pair of tongs, and he starts pulling one out of this side, and when it comes out, it's covered with Vaseline, but it's been in there for like 3 or 4 days, and so it's kind of stuck. So as soon as he pulls it, I have to sneeze. But if I sneeze, so I can't sneeze. But fortunately, he pulls it and pulls it and pull and pull and pull and pull and pull. And so I'm. Thank you. And so they let me go home, and I go home, and I'm. You've ever been in the hospital? You don't rest in the hospital. You know, they keep poking you and stuff. And so I go and I lay down on my bed. And we had this little dog, Chihuahua Sheltie mix. And he comes flying in, Dad's home, and leaps up on the bed and leaps on my chest and licks me in the neck. And I'm ah! And the dog goes flying and hits the wall, and he's laying and he was fine. But I get up and I go over to wash my face because the dog has licked my nose, and I totally forgot. Okay, so I water and I go, and next thing I know, I'm sitting on the ground. It's 1966 all over again. I've got tears streaming down my face. I have no idea. But anyway, okay. Anything else? Okay. Pablo, I let Pablo go in my pond, and Pablo's my frog, and Pablo's the dumbest amphibian in history of amphibians. I let him go in my pond, and he died a free frog. So I haven't seen him since then. Maybe he's still alive. Bailey thought he was dead every day anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Okay, that's it. Time to go. Thank you.
Dr. Downing. But Tuesday morning.